Hello, 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 hello. I'm here now. Had some technical difficulties along the line. Yeah, so here I am. Welcome back for this very last episode of the Livecast series we wanted to do for you to introduce the new album. Some of you are probably returning to see this new edition. Some of you are even new to the whole venture, and to all of you I say, for the moment, this is the last one in a sequence. However, tomorrow we will post a link where you can see all of the 6 live casts back via YouTube in your own time or at leisure, or simply if you missed out on something. It's Friday, it's Amsterdam, it's a little past 7:15. So again, let's quickly proceed with me wanting to introduce to you the last song, or composition rather, on the album. And it's called provisionally Maison Melody number 10. And what I would like to do is to tell you how that one came about. So, in other words, I have a quick anecdote for you before we start listening. And the anecdote is as follows. What we can reconstruct, because the truth is composers don't always have a perfect reconstruction of their own imagination. You don't always remember, how did you do that? Well, sometimes you don't. But in this case, I actually do. So that's worth our while, of you both and me, to go along that lane of reconstruction. So for that, I will take you, that is virtually back like 1.5 years ago. I was dining in a restaurant. Seems like, a normal thing to do. But my mind is always distracted by the background music in those restaurants. There is, it's either 4 on the floor, if you're in the millennial restaurant, or a bit loungy. And in the old ones, it's more like, the golden repertoire of yesteryear. And often I think, oh God, I'm not sure if I can even take dessert here. It's so annoying. And as I was in a Greek restaurant where the bouzouki was going on, I thought my mind drifted away from the meal. And what I thought was, how would it sound if? How would it work out if something more menacing, a little more threatening, would sound in a restaurant? How would that psychologically turn out? And what kind of impact would it make on the eaters, on the clientele? And that's just, a whiz, just a thought that springs to mind in awkward situations. But what I had was, at the time, was my iPad with me in a bag. And I went off to the toilet. And what I did there was I whipped out my iMac, on which I have an app. And I'll show it to you. This is the app. It's called Klimper. Klimper. It's just an app on which you can improvise a little by looking for interesting chords, piano chords. So whilst I was on the loo with the door closed, I started trying to see if I could find those menacing, those kind of threatening chords, just to see if my mind was drifting from the right path, or that it would be something musically interesting to project into that restaurant mentally. So what I did was, I listened to these chords. I found them by simply pushing the button. So here we go. This is what I heard in the Greek restaurant in the lavatory. Not sure if you can hear that. Put it a bit more loud. At first I was looking for chords. Yeah, nice. And then suddenly this chord came up. And there are other chords to choose from, so my finger just went off to try a few. These are mixolydian triads in musical technical jargon. Slightly suspensey. So I went from the one chord I liked to the next one. And back to the other one. And then I thought, let's find a third one. And then the next one. And that for me was, it's kind of, it's edgy, it's unnerving perhaps if you would play that in the restaurant. And that's that. However, after the quick dessert, I went home quickly and I went over to the piano and I started playing those chords just to see if I could progress from there. No. And then I got a little bored and I wanted to modulate. Yeah, I thought that's gonna bring me to my next composition for this album. And as it's the last track, and I'm gonna play it out for you in the full mix, how it become. I arranged it with strings, with sound effects, and what I can do next is play it to you as it has resulted into the final version. But if you care, I can show you, let you hear the separate layers of that as well very quickly afterwards. And that wraps up the session more or less, just as a timetable, okay? So let me play it now as it has become. And it came a long way from the Greek restaurant lavatory. All right, so that was the finished version of it all, and I thought it's funny to come up, with a chord by accident on location, and it just proves that inspiration can come under the shower, on the toilet, in bed, uh, in the tube station, along the way. Whenever it strikes inspiration, it strikes, and you have to obey. I was woken up at night as well, and then I suddenly had a melody which I thought impossible that it's my own, but I looked it up and it was. And it's a question of putting it down on your iPhone or something. So that is something there. This is the last track. Usually on my albums is indicative of which direction I want to go on the next album. So this is slightly more sinister. It's a bit more sound designish, more atmospheric, cinematic, and that is roughly the indication of what I will be doing after this album. It's interesting to find the combination between that, the acoustical lineup and the electronic atmospherics. And just to round it up, I'll just play you, because in a way, I feel this is like headphone music. That if I like it when you hear a piece, I myself as a listener, and I want to discover more layers, hidden layers in there after the third or fourth play, so that it keeps you attracted to the piece. So to round it up, I'll just do a few separate layers of this same composition just to show you what you can't really hear in the full mix. Just a second. Etc. But you get my drift that you can have all kinds of hidden layers. I used to do that in my music for the national news music. I provided in my country for years on end, and when the newsreader was reading out the headlines today in war at the Gulf or something at the time, or some major event in the world, what I did was secretly, they didn't know, the broadcaster, I put underneath, just as I play to you right now, it's a hidden layer. I put in a Tibetan kind of sound scale, so as if to tranquilize the listener of the national news, instead of getting psyched up by all the dramatic world news. And these are all kinds of little psychological extras you can add to the occasion. So that's what I did. And this song, is much more in that vein than the earlier ones I played to you, which are far more thematic and melodical and a bit more traditional. But somehow I thought this would be not a nice, but an end piece to reflect upon, because after all, we're in uncertain times. So let's reflect on what's next. Right. So, as you are probably familiar with, I can now offer you the CDs, which today we just were happy to have them be ready by today. So they're in-house now. If you want one, free of charge, then you can send us the email at office@stephenemmer.com, office@stephenemmer.com, and give us your postal address so we can send it to you ASAP, okay? And as I said before in the beginning, you can have a look back to all 6 of these live casts by tomorrow, they'll be all uploaded and available for you via link towards YouTube. And you'll find that on Facebook and Twitter and anywhere you fancy. So allow me to read out the closing quote of today, Friday. And that reads as follows. It says, "Simplicity is the final achievement after one has played a vast quantity of notes and even more notes. It is simplicity that emerges as the crowning reward of art." And that one was signed by Frédéric Chopin, aka the godfather of piano music. And I think he's right. I try to follow his footsteps in doing the less is more approach with this entire album, where you come to terms with that you don't want to make simple things overly difficult, but rather the other way around, to simplify difficult things. And I think that is something that's been going on for centuries in art, as in music. And I feel that makes a message more heartfelt. Let me know what you think, if I'm right or wrong in that. Anyway, thanks for coming. And we'd love to see you in the next couple of days still. Because if you return to this to this Facebook page, rather, Stephen Emmer Official on Facebook, what we have to present to you is making of sessions with the other musicians and the producer and the mixer. And we can show you how we recorded the string quartet and the piano and how we mixed the album with Francesco Donadello.